Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into a case that shows how these, seemingly distant government contract issues can actually hit pretty close to home.
hmm Especially when it's about critical services. We're looking at a situation involving bid rigging and monopolization, basically companies working together to cheat the system, not compete fairly.
And the source we're diving into today is a press release, right? Straight from the U.S. Department of Justice.
That's right. And it details this case focused on fuel truck contracts. These are absolutely vital. Think about wildfire season, Idaho, the Mountain West.
Yeah, crucial stuff.
Exactly. These contracts supply the fuel for the trucks supporting the U.S. Forest Service, fighting those big fires. They're essential.
And the DOJ release names a couple of key players involved.
It does. It mentions Ike Tomlinson, who used to own one fuel truck supply company, and also Chris Bird, who owns another similar company.
Okay, so our goal here, our mission for this dive, is to really understand what the DOJ says went down, what were the consequences, and I think importantly, why does this actually matter to, well, to you listening, paying taxes, maybe living near these fire-prone areas?
Precisely. Let's lay out the core of it.
Yeah.
What the press release describes is criminal conduct, a conspiracy
A conspiracy to do what exactly?
to monopolize, rig bids, and allocate territories, all centered on these really essential fuel truck contracts for federal agencies, specifically during wildfires.
And this wasn't like a one-off thing they tried. The source says it went on for a while.
Oh, yeah, a long while. The DOJ states the conduct lasted at least 8 years. And Ike Tomlinson specifically was involved from 2015 right through 2023.
Wow, okay, 8 years. That's quite a run. So let's peel back the layers a bit. How did this scheme actually work? What did the DOJ find about how they rigged these bids?
But what it definitely wasn't about real competition. According to the DOJ, Tomlinson, Bird, and other co-conspirators, they coordinated their bids.
Coordinated how?
Well, the main goal was just to inflate the prices the government paid. So instead of putting in independent competitive bids, like they're supposed to, they were basically deciding amongst themselves what prices to submit.
So they weren't trying to offer the best value, they were just coordinating to push the price up together.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about the price numbers either. They also apparently determined who would get priority for business from agencies like the Forest Service.
Priority based on what?
Based on geography, it seems. They essentially carved up the map for wildfire support in specific areas. They decided beforehand who was going to win the contracts in certain places.
Ah, okay. So they're predetermining who gets the job and making it look like there was competition when behind the scenes there really wasn't any.
That's exactly it. This coordination, it created this totally false sense of competition. The agencies, they probably thought they were getting the best deal through the bidding process.
But the outcome was rigged.
Largely, yes. And the press release adds, they even took steps to sort of push out or punish other potential competitors. Anyone who wasn't in on the scheme helps maintain control, you see.
Okay, so we understand the scheme now, but what happened? What were the consequences for Ike Tomlinson?
Right, the outcome. According to the press release, Ike Tomlinson got sentenced to 12 months in prison.
A year in prison.
Yep, and also ordered to pay a $20,000 fine. This was after he pleaded guilty back in May 2024.
And the other person mentioned, Chris Bird.
The source notes Bird also pleaded guilty to charges from the same investigation. So both key players faced consequences.
A year. Okay. I saw the Assistant Attorney General for Antitrust had some strong words about this sentence.
They did. They really emphasized that this sentence is meant to send a clear message. Bid rigging, especially when it hits federal agencies and critical services like this, it just won't be tolerated.
A deterrent message.
Exactly. The AG pointed out that these conspiracies, they directly harmed essential taxpayer-funded services, the very services needed to protect people and property from wildfires.
And the individuals involved profited.
Profited directly at the expense of taxpayers. That was the point made.
That really drives home the impact, doesn't it? Inflated costs mean, well, less money maybe for other parts of firefighting?
Yeah.
Or fewer resources?
Potentially, yes. It's a direct hit on the efficiency and capacity during a crisis. Which agencies were involved in digging into the criminal side of this?
It was a multi-agency thing, wasn't it?
It was. The press release lists the Antitrust Division's San Francisco office, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Idaho, the FBI, specifically their Boise office out of Salt Lake City, and the GSA's Office of Inspector General. GSA is the General Services Administration.
Okay, quite a team effort on the criminal front. But the press release also mentioned a civil resolution. That's separate but connected.
That's correct. Yeah, separate but related. On top of the criminal case, there was a civil settlement that was reached just recently, July 10th, 2024.
And what did that civil part involve?
Well, Ike Tomlinson and some related companies and people, they agreed to pay $1.1 million.
Wow, okay. Over $1 million, that's a big number. What did that cover? Was it just the bid rigging again?
It was broader, actually. The press release details several things resolved in that civil deal. It included the bid rigging, yes, but also allegations about how they got government contracts in the first place.
Like what?
Things like potentially submitting false certifications through SAM, that's the System for Award Management, the government's official contractor vetting system.
Ah, so manipulating the entry process, too.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And the civil case also covered claims about submitting false bills for equipment, like helicopter support trailers, and even allegations about wrongly getting a Paycheck Protection Program loan, a PPP loan.
Wait, the pandemic relief loans?
That's right. Funds meant for businesses struggling during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the civil side looked at a wider range of alleged misuse of government programs and funds.
So different conduct, but all kind of pointing towards exploiting government systems.
Seems to be the picture, yes. And the agencies investigating the civil side were slightly different, too. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Idaho again, but also the USDA's Office of Inspector General, Department of Agriculture.
Interesting how the different agencies focus on different pieces. This kind of coordinated effort makes me think about something else the DOJ release mentioned, the Procurement Collusion Strike Force, the PCSF.
Right, the PCSF. It's a joint law enforcement group. The DOJ set it up back in November 2019.
And its purpose is?
Its specific job is to proactively fight antitrust crimes, like bid rigging and related fraud schemes that target government spending. We're talking procurement contracts, grants, program funding.
At all levels. Federal, state.
All levels, federal, state, and local. It's a dedicated task force designed precisely to catch this kind of behavior.
So they're actively looking for this stuff.
That's the goal. Pool resources, pool expertise. The press release even gives a website, justice.gov procurement-collusion strike force, where, you can learn more or even report suspected bid rigging or price fixing related to government money.
Good to know. It shows they're serious about protecting taxpayer funds.
It does. And it seems this Idaho case, it's not unique. The press release kind of hints at that, right?
Yeah, it mentions other recent actions.
Briefly, yes.
Yeah.
It references, for example, a former president of an asphalt paving company also being sentenced for bid rigging, just indicating that this type of enforcement is ongoing. It's part of a bigger picture.
Which, again, brings us back to why this matters to you listening. This wasn't just some abstract corporate issue. It was a scheme, according to the DOJ, that directly targeted taxpayer money, your money.
Money intended for really critical public services, like protecting communities from devastating wildfire.
And when companies collude instead of competing fairly?
The price the government pays gets pushed up artificially. So either taxpayers foot a bigger bill, or the services themselves get less funding. Maybe fewer resources deployed for the same budget.
Which, in wildfire response,
But
that's a huge deal. Resources and speed are everything.
absolutely. That impact can be really significant on the ground.
Okay, so let's recap what we've unpacked from this DOJ press release. We've seen a detailed account of a scheme involving individuals like Ike Tomlinson and Chris Bird.
Allegedly conspiring for years to rig bids and carve up the market for those essential fuel truck contracts for fighting wildfires.
And the consequences were real. Prison time for Tomlinson, fines, and a hefty civil penalty of over $1 million.
Yeah, showing the government can and does use both criminal and civil tools to tackle these kinds of issues.
And it really highlights the work of various government agencies, doesn't it? Including these specialized groups like the Procurement Collusion Strike Force.
All working to uncover these complex schemes, protect public money, and try to ensure fair competition, especially for vital services.
This case is just a really powerful example, I think, of how something like antitrust violations, which can sound kind of technical or distant,
Can have very direct, very tangible consequences on essential public services that, frankly, affect all of us.
it really does make you stop and think. This case connects market manipulation directly to fighting wildfires. It makes you wonder, where else might this be happening?
In what other areas of public spending or crucial services could there be hidden costs or maybe reduced effectiveness because genuine competition is being stifled?
Yeah, what level of vigilance is really needed? Both from the government watchdogs, sure, but maybe also from us as an informed public?
How do we ensure taxpayer money isn't just being siphoned off by these schemes, but is actually going where it's supposed to go, to the critical services we rely on?
Definitely something to keep in mind next time you see headlines about government contracts or public spending. Food for thought.